Hey guys, how's it going? This is Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020, Week 21 results. What a week it has been in the Overwatch League. Of course, we haven't had any hero pools this week, so that means teams have been able to play whatever they want. And Brigitte has made a massive return, with some teams even rolling out the Brigitte specialists to get past these teams. It's been super interesting to see what people have been doing. But let's get through these results then, because some of these are incredibly interesting. So, we started off on Saturday on June the 27th with the Chengdu Hunters taking on the Guangzhou Charge. No surprises here that the Guangzhou Charge got a 3-1 win. I was surprised that the Chengdu Hunters were able to take a map off them, I'm not going to lie. But the Guangzhou Charge are good for their win, and Guangzhou Charge, I still think people are sleeping on this team. A lot of them won't put them up there with the likes of NYXL and people like that. They're saying, oh, they're a little bit of a cut below, but we'll take a look at the match a little bit later on because, yeah, Guangzhou Charge should not be taken lightly. Moving on, and we had Seoul Dynasty taking on the Shanghai Dragons. So this was a rematch of the May Melee final. And, well, Seoul haven't looked brilliant, have they? Let's be honest. And they couldn't compete with Shanghai. They gave a good account, I'm not going to lie. But they couldn't compete with the quality that this Shanghai Dragons team has, and so we see a 3-1 win for the Shanghai Dragons. This means that Shanghai, they go into the match against HANGZHOU a little bit later on that we'll talk about in a minute, with a chance to be #1 seed, which they missed out on last time around in the May Melee, because it was nicked away by the Guangzhou Charge. Because Guangzhou Charge have had so many close matches in June, Shanghai Dragons have had the more dominant matches, and so Shanghai are looking to seal up that #1 spot. But the last APAC match on a Saturday was HANGZHOU Spark taking on the London Spitfire. Now, this was super interesting because this was London's only match this weekend. And I also pointed out just now that Shanghai and HANGZHOU had to play each other later this weekend. So HANGZHOU had two not easy matches to prepare for. Let's be honest, London Spitfire are no pushovers right now. We saw that last week, and this is a rough one for HANGZHOU Spark. This is a 3-0 for the London Spitfire. I would not have predicted this at all. Honestly, this is impressive from London. Very impressive, and further proof that this London Spitfire squad is starting to click and is starting to improve. And what impressed me the most is two players that stepped up for the Spitfire in this match. One was Hailey, because I don't believe really we've seen Hailey. He's been consistent, but he hasn't been brilliant. In this one, he was brilliant. He was really good. He looked actually really good on the Batiste a lot of the time, Hailey, so I was really impressed with that. We know about Sanguinar. We know that Sanguinar has these great moments, and he had some great moments on the Brig once more. Bernard was fine, as per usual. Obviously, we saw Babel, we saw Although, and we saw Glister. All three of those DPS, we know they can be very good, and they were once again. But what stood out to me is the tanks improving for London, actually. Mainly the main tank. So they played JMac on the first map. He didn't actually do too badly. Remember, he's up against Guangzhou here, which is no mean feat. Guangzhou is a blooming good main tank. But then for the last two maps, they bring in Jihyun. And it's the best I've ever seen Jihyun playing. We haven't seen a massive amount of him. But compared to JMac, Jihyun really pressed advantages well, which is something that London Spitfire have really lacked all season long. When they get a pick, they don't press. They don't press the advantage. They're way too slow. And this was not evident for London. This was a more cool, calculated, very good London. No, their decision making was good, generally, most of the time. And they're good for their 3-0 win. They were better than the HANGZHOU Spark on the day. So this is a rough one for the HANGZHOU Spark to take. It leaves a very bitter taste in the mouth. Because this, we were talking at the end of last week about this team being the second best in Asia. We have to start questioning that after that. We really do. But we moved to NA after this. It was the Florida Mayhem taking on the Houston Outlaws. So Florida Mayhem, they lost to the Los Angeles Valiant. Los Angeles Valiant were very good though, so I'm willing to give them a benefit of the doubt there. So they came in against the Houston squad that had done very well last week, off the back of Dante, pretty much. And Florida go 2-0 up. It's a very close Vol Sky at the second map, but then Houston Outlaws run it back with two more map victories, going to a fifth map, and Florida Mayhem end up clutching it out on Nepal to get a 3-2 victory. So I think this is more Houston improving than it is Florida degrading in some respects. Florida looked good. They had that little bit of clutch that they needed. Again, Gargoyle stands out. Yaki stands out. BQB as well. This Florida Mayhem squad has got some great parts to it. Gangnam Jin, I shouldn't forget him either. But Houston, they were able to keep pace with them. They were able to run it back when they were 2-0 down. And that impresses me. That impresses me, Houston, big time. I think the meta is favouring the Houston Outlaws right now. So, yeah, there is that. And Dante is able to pop off. But Houston are certainly no pushover team. And I wouldn't want to face them if I was one of the teams mid-table or lower. Because, yeah, they're a team that's going to start pushing if this meta stays as it is. But there are some changes on the experimental card that might go through that might change things in a little bit of a future. Little bit of a future. That's not kind of a word, but I don't want to say far future because that's too far, but it's not near future either, so whatever. But moving on to the Dynasty taking on the Toronto Defiant. Big question here. Did we see Decay? No. Decay was nowhere to be seen again. But it doesn't matter because Dynasty got a 3-0 victory with Onigod and Doha. And Doha popped off big time. Nice to see him back to his form. He didn't show it last week, but this week he really did. Toronto Defiant looked like a mess. They really did. Not much to say. This is a match that was winnable for this Toronto Defiant squad, and it didn't turn out as a win. It didn't even turn out as a close encounter. Very good win for Dallas, though. Very big confidence booster. Exactly what they needed. And, again, inconsistency, Dallas. That's the problem. A lot of teams have this problem with inconsistency. If Dallas could find some consistency against these sorts of sides, they'd be a play-ins team at least. So hopefully Dallas can keep plugging away. But after this, we saw the Vancouver Titans taking on the Boston Uprising. Now, this went completely the opposite way than I thought it would. This was a 3-0 for the Vancouver Titans. So this means actually that Vancouver Titans have got 2 3-0s on the bounce because they got one last week as well. But this is really disappointing from Boston because I thought, and I think we all thought, Boston were improving. But this week, overall, I'm sorry, it's gone again. It doesn't look like they're improving. It looks like they've been outclassed by teams that they need to beat. And that's not good. That's the sort of thing we expect from a team that will be bottom of the league. They have another match a little bit later on that we'll talk about, but which in some respects is worse than this one. But this is a really good win for Vancouver. And believe it or not, that means Vancouver are in the top 4 seeds for the Summer Showdown, which is super interesting. I'm sure some of the teams like Florida and that want to come across the Vancouver Titans, and maybe another team that is in the top 4 seeds. We'll talk about it in a minute. But moving on after that, Washington Justice taking on the Los Angeles Gladiators. Now on the flip side, we have the Washington Justice, who have been extremely poor recently, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But this week, for Washington, there's been improvement. I really think there's been improvement. We've started to see Stitch and Janu improve. We've started to see Tuba. Tuba on the Genji is really good. This is a 3-1 win for the Gladiators, which you would expect at this point. Gladiators are a mid-table team. Washington Justice are definitely a near the bottom of the league team. But Washington Justice are starting to show those glimpses of improvement. But Boston did a couple of weeks ago, so who knows? But I hope Washington Justice can maintain this, and we'll be talking about them again a little bit later on. But we're moving on to the Sunday and the APAC matches on that Sunday, and this was the Shanghai Dragons taking on the HANGZHOU Spark, and this has been an incredibly rough week for the HANGZHOU Spark. Incredibly rough. This is a 3-0 for the Shanghai Dragons. Shanghai, brilliant week for them. 3-1 over the Seoul Dynasty and a 3-0 over HANGZHOU Spark. Couldn't have gone much better. Honestly, great week for Shanghai Dragons, and it still begs the question that, can anyone take this team down? It's really, really weird, isn't it? But HANGZHOU Spark, this has been an incredibly rough week. Architect didn't look as impactful as he has done previously. Godsby, same. Gujue, he was good, but again, same with Kyrokyu. Didn't have as much impact as he did last week. it's all just kind of dumbed down for the HANGZHOU Spark. It's really disappointing. And this means that they'll be getting a little bit of a rough seed in the I keep calling it the May Melee, the Summer Showdown, but it's been a really rough week for this HANGZHOU Spark team, and it shows that they still have some stuff to work on, but I still think they have the parts to become one of the best teams in this APAC region. It'll be interesting to see if they can bounce back from an extremely rough 0-6 week. But moving on, we have the Chengdu Hunters taking on the Seoul Dynasty. This was a clean 3-0 for the Seoul Dynasty. They looked by far the better team over this Chengdu Hunters squad. Chengdu Hunters, the trajectory for the Chengdu Hunters at the moment seems downward, which is extremely worrying. Like, I started to get worried for this Chengdu Hunters squad when they looked mentally boomed against London, who were their nearest competitors at the time, and they completely keep getting boomed and boomed and boomed, and I don't know how the Hunters start to dig themselves out of this hole, if I'm honest. Seoul Dynasty though, Profit looked good, Fitz looked good, Gesture looked good, we got to see Michelle, who was really good, nice to see Michelle back, and the whole team looked good, and I think, I don't want to be really, really harsh on Chengdu, but I think every team in APAC is going to look good against Chengdu. Apart from when Shanghai really messed around with their roster. But that's because Shanghai were messing around with their roster. So yeah, this is a rough one for Chengdu, but great win for Seoul, and it means they're not bottom seed. So good job, Seoul. Then we move on to the last APAC match of these regular fixtures in June, and it is the New York Excelsior taking on the Guangzhou Charge. And I said that the Guangzhou Charge have a knack of grinding out 3-2 wins. Well, nothing changes here. This is a 3-2 win for the Guangzhou Charge. Charge, I can't sleep on this team. Yes, they're not the top seed in APAC this tournament, because this is the Shanghai Dragons after their 3-0 victory over HANGZHOU. But they're still looking good. They're grinding out wins against very, very good teams. Very good teams. Something to point out for New York Excelsior, though. They went to a very interesting composition where they were obviously running the Brigitte. Everyone's pretty much one-tricked Brigitte during this week. And they put HANGZHOU back on the Brigitte in the support slot for the first 2 maps. HANGZHOU is an incredible Brigitte player. Like, he is astonishing at the hero. And he was one of the best Brigittes, if not the best Brigittes in the world during GOATS. So I can understand why they did it. It's a shame to see HANGZHOU back on Brigitte, I'm not going to lie. But it worked. They won the first map, but they lost the second map, and then they put him back on DPS, and he looked really good on the Genji. So, yeah. It's a rough one for New York, but I think, honestly, right now, Guangzhou are just the better team. And in both of these matches, against Chengdu and New York, Krong is just bonkers. I think we have to say that Krong is either the second best or the best off-tank in APAC. Possibly in the league. The thing is with the league is you've got Choi Hyobin, who's the elephant in the room. But your top 2 off-tanks, in my opinion, in APAC are Void and Krong. And I think a lot of the time Krong has more impact than Void does. So Krong is having a massive season for the Charge. And I don't know whether this team will be able to grind out 3-2 victories without him. So, yeah, massive play from Krong, massive play from Charge, great result. But we move back to NA now, Los Angeles Valiant taking on the Paris Eternal. So, this Valiant team was coming off the winner against Florida Mayhem, which was a very good win. Paris Eternal, up and down, up and down, up and down. And I honestly thought this would be a fairly easy win for the Valiant, but it wasn't. It was a 3-1 win for the Paris Eternal. And I liked that Paris Eternal were switching around their DPS. They weren't just relying on Sparkle and Exi. We saw Soon, and everything looked a lot better for the Paris Eternal when they had this rotation. So I think that was pretty impressive from Paris. Again, the rest of the team really did keep up. And the Valiant, they didn't get the value out of KSP or Shax like they had been getting. And that's possibly testament to the Paris Eternals shutting them down. So yeah, that's really impressive. And this is a really good win for Paris, and it kind of brings them up the rankings somewhat, I would say. But then we had the Atlanta Reign taking on the Vancouver Titans. Now, Vancouver have been getting good wins against lower teams, but Atlanta Reign is a step too far. Atlanta Reign come out absolutely smacking here and get a 3-0 victory over the Vancouver Titans. They looked like the better team, and they were the better team. But this means that Atlanta Reign actually get the second seed in NA for the Summer Showdown, which is Interesting. When you look at the seeding for the Summer Showdown, it's very weird. Very weird. But yeah, this is a really good win for the Atlanta Reign. But then we had the match we've been waiting for months. This was the Philadelphia Fusion taking on the San Francisco Shock. And it's a blowout. It is a 3-0 victory for the San Francisco Shock. And if I'm brutally honest, I'm not surprised. I'm honestly not surprised. I don't think this Fusion squad can compete with the Shock. Now, it's not because I think the Fusion players are bad. I think the Fusion rely a lot on solo skill. Like, they have Carpe, they have Hisu, they have Fury, they have Sado, they have Funny Astro, Alarm, Boombox. There's incredible individual skill. We saw Boombox actually, because we've seen more Zen. And the San Francisco Shock have got the skill to match that, right? But they've also got incredible, like, possibly best in league level team coordination. And I don't think the Fusion have that. So I think that's where the Fusion have been shown up here. By the way, on map 1, Ans absolutely handed Carpe his backside. I mean, he told him to sit down on the Widow. Like, Carpe was running Tracer, he never switched to counter Ans Widow, and Ans Widow was still taking his head off. Constantly. It is bonkers. Ans was really good during this. But yeah, this shows that there are the Shock of the big boys in NA. I think we can all agree with that. We've had 2 challengers to the Shock. Fusion, nowhere near. I'm going to be honest now. Florida Mayhem in the May Melee, they made them bleed, but they couldn't bring them down. So I think we have to say out and out, Shock are the best team in NA. It's a shame we don't get to see Shock versus Shanghai, because, oh, that would be a match and a half. I think that's honestly the 2 best coordinated teams in the league right now. I wonder if the Shanghai Dragons can match the Shock in terms of individual skill level though. So yeah, that's one thing I would love to see. Unfortunately, we'll have to probably wait until all the way into the playoffs for that. But we have one more match, and I said there was a match shoehorned on the end when we looked at the fixtures. But this was the qualification match for the Summer Showdown. So it was the 2 bottom seeded teams. So it was the Washington Justice versus the Boston Uprising, the 2 teams that didn't get a win. And I told you, I kept saying that the Boston Uprising I thought had improved. And this is proof that that improvement is not there. Not right now. Washington Justice, however, definitely improved. Boston took the first map, but Washington swept the next 3 to get a 3-1 victory and make themselves known in the Summer Showdown, whereas Boston won't even be playing next week. So this is rough. This is rough for Boston because they look like, since the end of the May Melee, where they took Paris so close, and actually the end of May entirely, because they beat the Gladiators as well, and then they took the Paris Eternals so close again, and everything looked like it was on the up for Boston, and then this week it has just gone straight back to the floor again, and it's really, really disappointing, and I don't know what else to say, really. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that, but let's take a look at our standings as a roundup for this video. Of course, on top we have the Shanghai Dragons. Philadelphia Fusion still in second, but San Francisco Shock are breathing down their necks and have matches in hand over them as well. Guangzhou are up to 4th now with that win over New York, who are 5th. Florida down to 6th, Paris in 7th, Valiant in 8th. Paris leapfrogging Valiant because of their win. Reign are up to 9th now, Seoul in 10th, Hangzhou in 11th, Los Angeles Gladiators in 12th, London in 13th, Houston in 14th, Dallas Fuel in 15th, Toronto in 16th, Vancouver in 17th, Chengdu down in 18th now, and I don't think that's going to change much, Washington Justice in 19th, and Boston in 20th. And that rounds us out for this week's results. Obviously, things change up next week with the Summer Showdown getting underway and finishing. I mean, it's going to be taking place across the weekend. It's not going to be 2 weekends, so I will probably divide up the previews for next week into APAC and NA, which I believe we did the same before the main Melee. And I think that would be better because I think we can have a more in-depth look at some of the teams in that then, instead of rushing through it, because otherwise we're going to have a lot to talk about. But I am going to leave it here for this one. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.